Once upon a time, there was a little girl from Armenia. Or Turkey, or Greece, or maybe Arabia. It's really unclear, because all we know is she showed up in Syria as a slave in 1239, which means I can't really use the same opening scene as Wu Zetian and Malik Ambar, but it's possible her parents had something to do with it. You're allowed to use your imagination here. As fate would have it, she was bought by an Egyptian prince, and the very next year he was an Egyptian sultan, and that's a big deal. This was the same dynasty as Saladin. Egypt was probably the most powerful state in the Muslim world. They have a kid together, so they get married, and so far this is sounding like a fairy tale, so long as we ignore the whole thing about one person in that marriage literally owning the other. But then, everything changed when the Franks attacked. That's right, it's time for a new crusade! Excuse me while I go on a lengthy Eurocentric tangent. If you'll recall, Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II won the Sixth Crusade with the power of negotiation, which is why his is the only crusade after the first to actually accomplish its intended mission. But bad news for Europe, a huge army of Persians just conquered Jerusalem. But they didn't conquer it for Persia, they conquered it for Egypt, because Persia didn't exist anymore after these guys called the Mongols just took over half of Asia, so they were kind of in a hurry to find a new home. And Louis IX of France is outraged. "Christians," he cries, "as His Holiness once commanded, we must hasten to help our brothers in the East, or they will make a mosque of Holy Mary's convent. Arm for the rescue of Jerusalem under your Captain Christ. Wear his cross as your badge." Whoa, hey, maybe dial back on the papal bull, yeah? That's kinda my thing. "Will you not fight for the Holy Land?" Right now I'm kinda busy. Busy? With what? Holy War? Holy War? Yeah, because apparently capturing Jerusalem is punishable by excommunication. Well, maybe if you were willing to give up some of Italy. I have dibs on Italy, and you know it, you filthy Saracen! Hungary, my man! You ready to... Jesus, what happened to you? What the f***, France? Whoa, man, where the f*** were you? These guys, they took over like half of Asia. They came in with an army big enough for the continent. Where the f*** was everybody? You know what always cheers me up? You ever seen the Holy Sepulchre? Get the f*** out of my country! Well, Norway. Looks like it's just you and me. What is my name? I'm gonna go now. And so, without further ado, the crusade turns into a one-on-one duel between one of the most powerful Christian kingdoms and one of the mightiest Muslim sultanates. And Louis' arrival is a shock to the Sultan. These guys came in shouting about Jerusalem, but they landed their entire army on the Nile River. The Sultan is rushed to a safe room in a nearby city, but if things don't turn around fast, Louis was gonna knock out the chain of command and use Egypt as his own springboard to conquer Jerusalem. The Sultan has to think quick. He's gotta bring in his army from around the country. He's gotta hold the line, he's dead. He's dead! The French army is storming the heart of the Sultanate. There's no one in charge to stop them. He didn't name a successor in his will. His oldest son's all the way up in Aladam, Anatolia. The whole government's gonna fall apart when they find out. Or if they find out. You see, there was one other person in the room with the Sultan as he died, and that was Shajar Al-Durr. And when she steps out of that room, she speaks with the chief of staff and the top general. And she says, "Listen, boys, the Sultan is dead. You can tell everyone and run around like chickens with our heads cut off, or you can listen up, because I've got a plan." They secretly escort the body out of his room, send it to an island in Cairo, and lock it up in a castle. And before he died, Shajar had him sign hundreds of empty pieces of paper so that after he was dead, she could continue to give new orders to the government with his signature on it, and no one ever caught on. She basically managed to save Egypt by playing Weekend at Bernie's. Or by imitating the last couple years of Wilson's presidency. Zing! When you cover everything from the Bronze Age forward, the Wilson presidency is topical. She first uses her power to secure the line of succession to make sure things don't go wrong after the gig is up, because she's got to use those papers wisely. And she has just enough time to properly assemble the army, because the French army forgot that the Nile flooded every year and they got stuck for 6 months. But they used that time to gather reinforcements, and soon they're moving again. Shajar's commanders come racing in telling her, "Your Highness, the enemy is here all too soon. The top general is dead. Tell the Sultan to come out of his room. We have to fall back." "No. We make our last stand here. We will yield not 1 inch. And amazingly, with their final stand, they were able to beat the French and kill half their top commanders. Even more fortunately, King Louis is too dead set on making this crusade work, so instead of retreating, he decides to besiege the city. Except instead of starving them out, all he manages to accomplish is starving his own army to death, and Shajar's men capture him as he tries to escape. The timing couldn't be better, too. The French army was defeated just as the Sultan's successor Turan Shah arrived, and Shajar makes the sad announcement that the Sultan has passed away this morning. He saved us in our hour of need and leaves us in the hands of his son. Not for long, though. Turan Shah's a little too ready to start consolidating power and starts installing people loyal to himself. Plus, he was a belligerent drunk in a Muslim nation, and Shajar and the army, they'd rather just not deal with that. So one day, when Shajar is in Jerusalem, doing a victory lap, or something to rub it into the French, I guess, Turan Shah demands all his father's riches. She gives a look to the new top general, he kills the Sultan, and Shajar is officially on the throne. First order of business? What do we do about him? Oh yeah, I thought they'd send someone to get him back by now. I wonder what's the holdup.
A man has fallen into the river in Lego City. Who could have committed such a terrible crime? Oh god. Believe it or not, these were actually the people who wanted to rescue King Louis. Don't let the rioting confuse you. These were French patriots. But Connor, rioting is the #1 symptom of being a French patriot, so I don't really see why that would be confusing. Anywho, if you want to learn more about some of the Mimi crusades that were happening in Europe at the same time as this video, make sure to go check out my video on History House Productions. Back to you, Jackie Racky. Say, can I call you that?
Anyway, they finally get negotiations going, and Louis pays about 30% of his kingdom's annual revenue to buy his freedom back, and he runs off to Acre to help out what's left of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Second order of business, someone must have forgotten to tell the Ayyubid emirs in Syria about the decision to make Shajar the Sultan and take their family off of the throne, because they revolt. The army could probably take care of it, but the Abbasid Caliph also said that she wasn't legitimate, and even though he didn't have any real power, he was still the closest thing to a Muslim pope, at least for Sunnis. It was just turning into this whole thing, so she decided to marry her new commander-in-chief and make him the Sultan. Wah wah. He still had to put down the rebellions, while Shajar did all the business of governing, and they ended up losing some territory because of it. But the fighting was done, and the Caliph accepted the new guy because he really wanted everyone to get along, because have you seen the outside lately? These guys called the Mongols just took over half of Asia, and their empire is on our doorstep! I think they look hungry. And then, surprise, surprise, hubby isn't happy doing the grunt work, and he starts executing the Mamluks, army slaves mostly, causing the rest of them to take refuge in Syria, where the rest of the Ayyubid dynasty is still very much holding a grudge. Hubby doesn't like the look of that, so he needs a powerful ally to stand up to the Mamluks. So he gets married to someone else, just casually. And his new father-in-law warns him Shajar's making her own alliances, and guess what? He's a threat to her now, and she strangles him in the bath. Eesh, what a deeply unpleasant way to go. She tells everyone the Sultan has tragically and mysteriously died overnight, but yeah, no one believes that story, and this story does not have a happy ending. She was arrested and clogged to death. Actually killed by a bunch of palace slaves hitting her with clogs, and they tossed her out into the street. So remember, boys and girls, if you're going to marry someone for political expedience, you really gotta do a background check to make sure they're as much of a pushover as you think they are.